All the Ukrainians were holding their own pretty well in the beginning of the war, but things were never going to work out the way that they and their Western handlers thought, because Russia is just a much more massive country in population, industrial output, and potential to cause utter and complete destruction.
Ukrainian forces have begun testing Russian positions with artillery strikes and ground attacks, searching for vulnerabilities. And this long-awaited counteroffensive is expected to be carried out on multiple fronts. This is nearly 16 months after Russia's invasion of Ukraine.
Shelling along the eastern and southern fronts has ramped up in the past 48 hours, and Russia has ordered people to evacuate from 18 different towns in the central Zaporizhia region, including around its huge nuclear power plant. It's widely expected that Ukrainian forces will try to cut the Russian army in two by pushing all the way down south to the Black Sea coast.
Ukrainian Eastern Group of Forces spokesperson Captain Ilya Yevlash stated that Ukrainian forces liberated additional 2 kilometers of territory in the Bakhmut direction. Comments posted by the military community suggest extreme disillusionment among those involved in these counter-attacks, especially near Bakhmut, with reports of ill-conceived advances, lack of artillery support and heavy casualties. Over the last 9 months, the Russian force in Ukraine has proved itself capable of conducting stalwart defensive operations. However, it continues to display only minimal capability of the offensive. Commanders struggle to orchestrate complex joint effects, to concentrate sufficient artillery, ammunition, and to maintain high morale and offensive spirit.
Taking over a vital trench network by Nestyryanka, which is one of Russia's big outposts in the area. Ukrainian troops have been in the south of Kamyansk, which Russia actually captured when before it was a gray zone, before they did their offensive by Orikhiv that really failed. It looks like Ukraine may also be noted inside of Luhivske, right next to Bilohirya, which was another area where Russia attacked during their offensive. They've moved further into the area west of Nestyryanka, and it's likely that Russia may have abandoned Pyatighatki. Tokmak and Mikhailivka are the last two big fortifications that Russia has in the area, and if Ukraine is able to make it to those, it's mostly just going to be a straight shot towards Melitopol. If when they're at Melitopol and they do have ground-launched small diameter bombs, they will be able to hit the Crimean Bridge again, and that will effectively completely isolate this entire area of the front, including Crimea.
They claim that they've liberated 3 by the start of the day, then there was a 4th, and it looks like there's a 5th village that's been liberated as well. There's been over 25 battles over the last 24 hours. So all of these attacks are having unintended consequences for the Russians as part of this an ability to detect the flank and the Russian priorities, which are very clearly now Crimea and the Donbass. And it does appear that Ukraine are starting to make progress.
So it would appear that the Ukrainians have found a soft spot. It may be that they can break through and commit those 8 brigades of Western-trained, Western-equipped troops to finally conduct that breakthrough that we've been talking about for so long.
If it is true, this would be key, because part of the plan from the beginning had been to push down towards Melitopol there to break that land bridge between Crimea and eastern Ukraine.
But if Ukraine can drive back an already shaky Russian army, it stands a chance of forcing Moscow to bargain for an end to its failed invasion. But if Ukraine fails, it would be a bitter blow to the country's weary population and could endanger continued support from some restless NATO members. I think the question I've had leading up to this moment is this kind of a do or die moment, to use a poor cliche, for the Ukrainian forces, for Ukraine in this conflict right now?
It's a very significant moment.
A Ukrainian official admitted their losses were, quote, colossal. But the British Defense Ministry estimates that Russia also suffered huge casualties, likely the highest since the peak of battle for Bakhmut in March. U.S. Ambassador to Russia, what do we need to know about this village and how this counteroffensive is going?
Well, the actual village is a very small village. Pyatighatki means 5 houses, translated, so it's a small village. It's a victory. There have been several other villages that have been taken in the last 2 weeks.
Despite these heavy losses, are these small advances, in fact, a sign that the Ukrainian counteroffensive is working?
I think it's working.
Ukraine says its forces are pushing forward in the regions around Bakhmut, Donetsk and Luhansk. The Defense Ministry says Ukraine has regained several hundred meters of territory in some areas, despite greater Russian artillery
But we see that the Ukrainians are making advances and liberating more land. We know that the more gains Ukraine makes, the stronger their hand will be at the negotiating table.
After weeks of fighting, Ukrainian forces have broken through Russian defensive lines in the Zaporizhia region in the southeast to retake more territory. On Monday, Kyiv's defense ministry announced it had fully reclaimed the village of Robotyne. South of Robotyne lies the strategic city of Tokmak, a critical railroad junction for the Russian military. Ukraine has been pushing to reach the Sea of Azov in a grinding effort to cut Russian forces in half and sever the land bridge to Crimea. But Kyiv's advances have been slow as they push through Russia's heavily fortified positions and vast minefields.
Ukrainian forces have broken through the extremely tough Russian defenses in the Zaporizhia region. Let's go over everything we know. Of course, we're talking about Robotyne, which is located right here. Russia has had a massive footing in this village and then a massive defense line just south of this area, right along here. The Ukrainian army put out a brief statement today stating that they managed to break through the most difficult line of defense in the south and now will be able to advance faster. If you recall my previous videos talking about this area, Russia had a massive defense line and that was made up a lot of mines and barriers along this front, and as you can see right here, they have broken through. One of the commanders that are leading this fight stated that his troops had passed the main defense mined road, so they have finally gotten past all these mines. And then he stated, quote unquote, "We are reaching the frontiers where we can move forward. I'm sure we will go faster from here," which means that the biggest line of defense was that mine roads, and now that they got through them, they can kind of push right through it. This means that Ukrainians will more than likely get to Tokmak a lot faster than anticipated.
You think, asshole? You think?
Looking back, but also looking forward. In February, Ukraine's president marked a year since the start of Russia's invasion, remembering the fallen, rewarding those who made it, and raising hopes for the second year of the war.
We have survived. We have not been defeated, and we will do everything to win this year.
Zelensky promised to take the offensive in 2023. With his forces bolstered by deliveries of Western weapons and equipment, hopes were high for a decisive victory. In early June, after months of preparation, his troops launched their attack. They hit the Russians on 3 axes, 1 in the east, 2 in the south. The main objective was to cut the Russian army in 2 and sever its supply lines to Crimea. It was an ambitious plan. After months of intense and costly fighting, Ukraine succeeded in making some gains, but slowly and painfully. The battle for the southern village of Robotyne was symbolic of the difficulties. Ukrainian forces encountered well-prepared Russian defences, with dense minefields, mazes of trenches, barbed wire, and anti-tank ditches.
The battles are fierce, but we are moving forward, and that's the main thing. I thank you guys for every Ukrainian flag that is now returning to its rightful place.
By the time the Ukrainian flag was raised over Robotyne at the end of August, Ukraine's army had suffered heavy losses. Zelensky said Ukraine had waited too long for Western weapons. The delay gave Russia more time to prepare the battlefield. Russia, meanwhile, has regrouped and reinforced its troops. This footage claims to show a Ukrainian unit on the defensive near the eastern city of Avdiivka. Ukraine's counteroffensive failed to deliver. Only a new strategy and renewed international support can break what has now become a stalemate.
October 2023, Time magazine. Kiev demanded an operation to retake the city of Horlivka. The answer came back in the form of a question. With what? They don't have the men or the weapons. Where are the new recruits? The shortage of personnel has become even more dire than the deficit in arms and ammunition. We don't have the men to use them. New recruitment is way down. Stories are spreading on social media of draft officers pulling men off trains and buses and sending them to the front. Guardian, November of 2023. The exhaustion of those who have been at the front since the start of the conflict, the difficulty in mobilizing new recruits, failure of this summer's counter-offensive. If we are ready to send another 300 to 500,000 lives of Ukrainian soldiers to capture Crimea and liberate Donbass. But I don't see the 500,000 more people ready to die. What does that tell you? 500,000 more people. That means 500,000 had already died at this point. And this is in November of 2023.
Avdiivka has fallen after 7 years as a linchpin of Ukraine's eastern front line and 5 months of intense fighting. The fortress city is no more. Russian forces swept in and raised their flags last month after pummeling Ukraine's brave defenders into submission and forcing them to retreat. That Kiev's men held out so long when they were short of men, armour and ammo is a testament to their fighting prowess.
Ukraine shocked the world when its troops stormed across the border and captured territory inside Russia itself for the first time since the full-scale invasion began. But almost as quickly as the land was initially conquered, it's now almost been completely lost to a Russian counteroffensive. Maps by the Institute of the Study of War, based on data collected from social media, shows in blue how the Ukrainian-controlled salient has shrunk rapidly over the past week or so. This video, posted on March the 9th, shows Russian troops in the village of Malaya Lokhnya, waving flags on top of what appears to be a communications tower. They also made incursions from the other side of the Ukrainian-held salient. By March 11th, videos posted by Russian military bloggers showed troops in the village of Zamostye. The distinctive church with a blue tower is a key identifier. Here they can be seen nearby in Makhnovka. The building next to the playground in this video is identifiable as the village kindergarten. The next day, videos emerged showing Russian soldiers taking the key town of Sudzha, which had been the heart of the Ukrainian salient. They can be seen here in a square in the center of town. Ukraine's Kursk operation was meant to create a bargaining chip for Ukraine to trade with Russia in peace negotiations. In that objective, it has now failed.
Right now, you guys are going around and forcing conscripts to the front lines because you have manpower problems.
Вибачте, ну собакою, ну.
Що ви робите? Яка квартира?
Что происходит?
Допоможіть, будь ласка! Допоможіть! Допоможіть! Тварі на черемушках.
So there we have it, the tragedy of the Ukraine and Russian war, where thousands of men are being kidnapped off the streets every single month to fight a war they don't want to fight, while millions of Americans and Europeans continue to push them, continue to encourage them to fight a forlorn, hopeless, and pointless war that they are going to lose. You guys have heard about suicidal empathy, right? Well, this is homicidal empathy.